You're American hero. G.I. Joe is there. It's G.I. Joe.
Hey, welcome to Half the Battle.
With the summer of vehicles behind us, it's time to get back to the figures, starting with our ranking. The ranking of all G.I. Joe figures from 1987. All 40 of them.
Why did I start this? This is gonna kill me.
And it's not just because of the numbers. The golden age of G.I. Joe ended after 86, and we're in a weird territory now. As always, we'll be going alphabetically with the Joes and Cobras on their own list.
Well, I hope you packed a lunch, because we're gonna be here for a while.
First up is Avalanche and our introduction to Battle Force 2000.
Battle Force 2000. Battle Force 2000.
I was tempted to put them in all at once, but no, they deserve their own spots. Anyway, Avalanche is an Arctic trooper, but avoids being bland by looking so futuristic, which was the whole Battle Force 2000 theme. That earns him a spot in the good tier.
Next is the only Canadian on the Joe team.
Backstop. He looks like he should be part of Battle Force 2000 really, but he doesn't look good. I don't know, there's something about the figure that makes it look cheap. Yeah, I'm gonna have to put him in the bad tier.
Back to Battle Force 2000.
With Blaster. And this figure looks much better. Futuristic, a good color scheme. I don't really have any complaints, so he goes into the good tier.
And we're sticking with Battle Force 2000.
Because next is Blocker. And he's kind of a disappointment, really. He's not really that futuristic looking, he's just a dude in a pretty boring outfit. Yeah, I'm afraid it's the bland tier for him. Anything but bland is Chuckles, with his Hawaiian shirt screaming at you. And unlike Bazooka, he's got a reason for the casual Friday look, as he's an undercover agent. It's an interesting concept that helps him get into the good tier. Crazy Legs is the first really difficult one. I'm calling the outfit weird, but I also don't like it very much. The colors are just bad. I'd almost call him bland, but that doesn't really fit either. In the end, I just put him into the bad tier and called it a day. Dodger, also from Battle Force 2000, is a figure that you can instantly tell where the inspiration came from, namely the Colonial Marines from Aliens.
And that's not a bad thing.
Because it's a great look and enough to put him into the good tier. Falcon looks like a real soldier. Now, normally this would put him in danger of being relegated to the bland tier, but I think he looks really cool and has some kick-ass accessories. Hell, I like the figure so much, he shoots right past the good tier and into the best one. Next, Fast Draw.
Oh boy.
Yeah, weird tier, just look at him. Cool accessories though, but they have a tendency to fall apart, and really, no gun? He goes on the battlefield with 2 missiles, so he's useless once he's fired them. Weird.
And speaking of weird...
The Fridge. Not the figure itself really, I'd almost call it bland, but the idea of a famous football star joining the Joes is just weird. Similar to my feelings on Sergeant Slaughter, so he joins him in that tier. I don't know what they were thinking with this second gung-ho figure. Going from a rough and mean looking SOB to a guy in a dress uniform was certainly a choice.
A bland choice, in fact.
So he goes into that tier. You can't talk about hardtop without talking about rarity. Not just the figure, which was only ever available with the Defiant set, but also one of his 2 accessories, a removable microphone. That thing can go to hell and rot in the worst tier. The figure itself, though, is unique and interesting, so it can go into the good one. Jinx is great. A female ninja with a kick-ass look certainly is unique. My only regret is that they didn't also put out a maskless version.
But that's not something that really happened in the original line.
Anyway, Jinx goes right into the number 1 spot in the best tier. Back to Battle Force 2000 with Knockdown, and I'm sorry, but this futuristic outfit is just ugly. Easily the worst of Battle Force 2000, but not bad enough for that tier. He sits on the ugly side of the bad tier. Next is Law, who looks great and has a doggo with him, so I had a really hard time deciding between the good and best tier. But I feel the head sculpt could have been better, so he goes into the good tier. The top of it though.
And finally, we're done with Battle Force 2000.
Well, once we've placed Maverick anyway. Since this list is just about the figures, I won't take into account that he's a pilot that didn't come packaged with a plane, but I sure as hell will still complain about it. The figure itself is cool and futuristic with a nice helmet, so he goes into the good tier. Mercer takes us to another sub-team, the Renegades. I don't take characters into account for these lists, just the toys, but I will mention being an ex-Cobra Viper is cool. And he's got a cool and unique look, so he goes into the good tier.
And now, the man from the steakhouse.
Outback. He's got a different but realistic look compared to most other figures of the year. The figure is pretty awesome, and once again I was going back and forth between the good and best tier. Now, this is me being petty, but I don't really like the gun he came with, so that sticks him into the good tier. Back to the Defiant and its pilot Payload. Another rare figure and a great looking astronaut on some sort of Star Trek. I like how you can instantly tell it looks like an astronaut from the 80s, but futured up a bit for G.I.Joe. An easy good tier placement. Psych out! What is this outfit? I don't even... It hurts to look at with all the stuff going on. I still wouldn't call it bad, but he's definitely the king of the weird tier. Another renegade was Red Dog, who looks like a thug, in a good way I mean.
The whole point of the Renegades was that they were different from the regular Joes.
And I can dig that, so he goes into the good tier. Rumbler is Hasbro being extremely lazy by taking a few older body parts and making a new figure. That's not always a bad thing, but Rumbler just looks really bland, so that's the tier for him. Sneak Peek was another one where I was of two minds about the figure, weird or good. I dig the look, and sure, he's a little weird looking, but not enough for that tier, so he goes into the good one. Next is Steamroller, who is only available with the Mobile Command Center, and it's pretty awesome that Joe's got two huge vehicle playsets in 1 year. He looks rough and tough, not somebody to mess with. He also looks like a grease monkey more than Clutch ever did. Yeah, easy pick for the good tier.
Now we come to kind of a weird concept. The next Joe is... you? And or me?
Yes, the Steel Brigade was a mail-in figure that you could fill out a card for, making you part of the Joe team thanks to the mask. Well, unless you were a girl, I guess then you're SOL. The helmet is goofy looking, and together with the concept is enough to put him into the weird tier. By the way, I know there were a ton of variations of this figure over the years, but they're all similar enough that I won't rank them individually.
With one glaring exception we'll get to in a future list.
The last Renegade and second to last Joe is Taurus, and dear lord, I said the Renegades were meant to look different, but this is going overboard just a tiny bit. Yeah, weird tier. I was even tempted to bump Psych out from the top spot, but he can stay with Taurus being very close behind.
And finally...
Tunnel Rat, a good looking figure with nice accessories. I had pretty much made my mind up that he was going into the good tier, but then I remembered one aspect of him that elevates the toy. The face sculpt was based on Larry Hama, the writer of the G.I.Joe comic and file cards, so that launches him into the best tier. And those were all the 1987 G.I. Joes ranked. But of course I'm not done. There's still all of Cobra to get through. And this is gonna hurt because you probably know what craptastic figures are coming up.
Well, once more onto the breach, dear friends, once more.
Well, we start off with Cobra Commander. Is that you? Well, that certainly is a new look for him, isn't it? And this new look was baffling to me as a kid. Probably more so because this was the first Commander we could buy at retail here in Belgium. The only previous one we could get was the hooded mail-in version. I wouldn't call it a bad figure, but definitely weird as hell.
Once again, speaking of weird...
Crocmaster. Yeah, he goes right into that tier too. BDSM looking mofo. He only misses out on the bad tier because somehow I still kinda like the figure.
The same cannot be said for our next entry.
Crystal Ball, and holy hell. Look, over the last, say, 28 years of G.I. Joe fandom, enough has been said about this figure.
Most people don't like it.
I will, however, show some restraint and not put him in the worst tier, but the bad one with a side order of ugly. Sanity returns with a Gyro Viper. Finally, something I can put into the good tier. Cool look, nice removable helmet, and a breath of fresh air after Crystal Ball.
And the air gets even fresher and crisper.
With the Ice Viper. A non-bland Arctic figure is always a nice surprise, and on its own would put it into the good tier. What raises it to the best tier, however, is the helmet, as it can be put on looking like the goggles are either up or down. That innovation gives him that push needed to enter the best tier. Nemesis Enforcer.
Nemesis frickin' Enforcer.
Even if you like G.I. Joe the movie, even if you like the concept of Cobra Law, this figure was still a complete disappointment. He's far too short and stocky, and the bat wings are an insult to the character design. He just looks stupid all round and can use his pathetic wings to flap over to the worst tier. Well deserved. And then there's Raptor.
And I can't believe all this crazy stuff came out in the same year.
I'd almost say this is the year that G.I.Joe jumped the shark. Yeah, Raptor, you weird weirdo, guess what tier you're in? In fact, for this one time and one time only, forget the tier is called good but weird. It's just weird, okay?
And it's a crowded place this year.
As the Cobra La Royal Guard goes in there too. In the top spot no less. It's the only Cobra La figure I kinda like, and that saves it from the lower tiers, but just barely. Sea Slug is one I was struggling with. I always liked the figure, but you can't deny he's weird looking. But after thinking about it a lot, he's just not weird enough for that tier, so he gets a place in good. The Techno Viper is cool and futuristic, like the single figure that's the Cobra version of Battle Force 2000. Well, okay, maybe Cobra Commander 2. I think it's a great toy, and what puts it over the top is the set of accessories which are all linked together but are very versatile. He goes into the best tier. Now, your first instinct with Worms is to say weird, but really it's only the name and maybe the helmet. It's a fine figure, though the Racketeer may want to sue somebody. Worms goes into the good tier.
And finally,
This year's only Dreadnought, Zanzibar. If last year they went with the Mad Max route, I'm not sure what this is even supposed to be. Pirates versus ninjas? Yeah, I'm just gonna put him in the weird tier and forget about him.
and that was the list.
Except it's not, because there's one more figure to go that I didn't include alphabetically because I wanted to go out on a high note.
Well, not actually a high note. Kinda the opposite, in fact. A brown note?
Ladies and gentlemen, the Cobra La Lobsterman himself, Globulus. What the hell, Hasbro?
What the actual hell?
The figure can't even stand upright because of the tail thing that frankly looks like a fantasy tickler dildo. You know, I blame the fact that Cobra La was a 3-pack for this. An individually carded Globby might have had more work done on him, like give him the ballsack from the movie with a coiled tail inside or something. But what we got was G.I.Joe the Marital Aid. This is why there's an actual worst tier, people, the one below worst. Like in hell, there's a special place in my list reserved for toys such as this. There. We're done. 40 frickin' figures. I knew what I was getting into when I started these tier lists, but still, I was not prepared. You always hurt the ones you love.
Now go be disappointed in me for not putting Crystal Ball on the worst tier in the comments below. Well, I'll see you next time, everybody, and hey, why not like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing.
G.I. Joe, American hero. G.I. Joe is there.